this video, I'm going to talk about how to deal with an unavailable man. And there are several ways in which people are unavailable, emotionally or otherwise, but in this video we're going to focus on the type of man who lets you chase him. Any romantic dynamic between two people will be made up of masculine and feminine energies and behaviors, which will create a sort of yin-yang energy dynamic between the two. And when a man lets you or even entices you to chase him, he's essentially taking on the major yin of the exchange, forcing you into a position where you really only have two options, which is either to leave or to take on the yang of the dynamic, meaning chasing after him. A man who lets you chase him is a man who, in his dynamic with you, and probably romantically as a whole, is in his feminine energy. If you have ever actually been pursued by, or more accurately, been the pursuer of a man like this, you know exactly what it feels and looks like. He is the man who will rarely, if ever, actually make the first move, but instead repeatedly fan his tail feathers at you, hoping that you will do it for him. He's the type of man who'll drop in just to get your attention and then turn away. This is the man that even if you win him over, which you probably won't because his whole spiel is that you will never catch him, but if you do, you'll always feel like you're chasing him in some way. Chasing his commitment, chasing his attention, or chasing his affection. You're the reacher and he's the settler. He's the man that every time you move one step closer to him, he moves one away. And this dynamic is likely never going to change, because how things start, they'll usually continue. The only way you can actually potentially win a man like this over or regain control of the power dynamic between the two of you is to give him a taste of his own medicine and then some. Which means to never give in, to not take on the yang of the dynamic, to remain stoic and immovable instead of becoming frustrated and angry at him. And before you say that you don't like to play games, if you are involved in a situation like this, you are playing games. You are just the loser. And you are kind of willingly playing along too, because not playing games means walking away from the board entirely when you are treated this way. So first and foremost, if you truly don't want to play any games with a man in this situation, then you're best off just dropping him and walking away with either a very short and matter-of-fact statement saying that you're walking away because you don't play games, or walking away with no statement of why you're doing so at all, which in these types of cases is the best thing to do. The next best thing would be to be honest and vulnerable and tell him about your feelings. And then if he doesn't reciprocate, then you let it go and move on. But I'd argue that the telling him how you feel part is only if you need it for your own state of mind. So you can feel like you've truly left it all out on the table when you walk away and move on. But I made this video because I find that a lot of women have a difficult time truly walking away and moving on, and if not that, then letting go mentally after the fact. Letting go of the could-haves and would-haves, the what-ifs, and what is essentially a fantasy of him and you, and what could have been. So let me lovingly shake you out of your fantasy. When dealing with an unavailable man, many women fail to realize that by getting caught up with him, they're essentially, at least temporarily, emotionally unavailable themselves. We tend to complain that men are emotionally unavailable, but when you are a healthy, self-assured, emotionally available woman met with the type of behavior that I'm describing, then you won't give a situationship such as this much, if any, time before moving on. If you know what you want in a relationship and it's not this, then this type of situation shouldn't stay enticing for long. And even if you're not looking for a relationship coming from a healthy mindset, you wouldn't want to be jerked around regardless. And in this case, you are being jerked around. In one of my favorite books, Women Who Love Too Much by Robin Norwood, she explains how people, but especially women, get caught up in situations with emotionally unavailable men, both short and long term, so that they can feed off the fantasy of how things could and would be in a perfect fantasy world, instead of accepting and facing reality and finding someone who they can actually accept for who they are and what they offer, and who may actually provide a stable, real relationship. It's essentially an emotional addiction to longing or pain. This is one thing that may explain the phenomenon of why when someone likes us, we don't want them back. But when someone doesn't want us, we can yearn for them for months or years. Real life could never feel as potent as fantasy, because longing is a much more potent feeling than having. So we entertain the fantasy of a man who is clearly messing around, because as long as he is a fantasy, he feeds the intense emotional longing we experience. And this is usually not the start of something beautiful, but if it ever is because he actually turns around and makes the change we've longed for, Robin Norwood explains how in actuality the attraction we feel is then often lost, because we don't realize our inner matrix, that we're actually living in the fantasy of the could-be's. You're actually feeding off the fact that he's not reciprocating, and he's feeding off of running from you, and you're perfectly matched in this knot together. But if you are or ever have been in this position, don't feel bad. It is also just human nature to want to chase the attractive thing that's running away. Flee, they follow, follow, they flee. But being consciously aware of this pattern may help you recognize if and when it's happening to you, so that you can actively try to meet someone who will actually build a connection with you. And so you can see the fantasy for what it is when it happens, and recognize that it's a dead end before you get caught up in your head. So does that then mean that you should only go for a man who chases you instead? Should you act like someone like Jin Young from Singles Inferno because you are the woman? Some women seem to think that the idea that the man does the pursuit and takes initiative means that a man must drive the entire connection while you just sit passively on your throne. But I just personally don't think that's good either. When building a healthy relationship, two people give up a little vulnerability at a time to build a stronger connection with each other. No one is supposed to actually chase anyone, but I'll make another video going into depth about this specifically. With this video, you may have come into it thinking or hoping that it would offer you means to change the emotionally unavailable man. But there are no one to change but self. He is not your problem, you are. Work on loving yourself first and on releasing any negative emotional addictions, such as the one to the victim mentality, so that you will feel attracted to being treated right and will choose a partner who will bring you feelings of peace and love. A man who lets you chase him is a man who wants to be chased. And when people show you who they are, you have to believe them and accept it. People are not to be changed by us, and I say this with much love, but there's a certain pitiful, almost arrogance to it when we believe that someone should adhere to our vision of them, especially in the early stages of attraction. And who you should really pity is the man who needs to be chased. He may miss out on the woman that he wants because the woman he wants is the one he can't have. And he can't have her because she won't chase him. The thing is that even a man in his quote-unquote feminine energy will often be attracted to a woman in her feminine energy in the same areas, just like how women who are more in their masculine energies still are attracted to men in their masculine energy as well. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and for other resources such as blog posts, courses, or coaching, check out my website in the description below, or watch this video next for an example of the feminine-masculine energy dynamic. Thank you for watching and subscribe to my channel for more.